Hi, it's Michael Kerr here, presenting Small Business Banter. A healthy micro and small business sector means a successful economy and a more vibrant society. Small Business Banter is about helping regional business owners better prepare for current challenges, but also for the next stage of business success. I'm Michael Kerr, founder of Kerr Capital, advisors to business owners. Each week, I interview a fellow small business owner or an expert, and they share their stories, their lived experiences, the wins and the losses, and their best advice to help you, the listener, get the most you can from your own business. Small Business Banter is brought to you from the studios of 104.7 Gippsland FM and is heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network. And thanks also to Kerr Capital, supporters of the show. Okay, welcome to another edition of Small Business Banter Radio. Bruce Peterson, who is the owner of Grande Experiences and the LUME in its various forms, is a very special guest today. So welcome, Bruce.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
I've been looking forward to this one for quite a while. So what I'm going to do in this case is just hand over to you to describe the business that you've built, where you're at, and then we're going to explore a little bit about how you get there, how you got there. It's a fascinating story. So over to you.
Sure. Look, we're a little bit unique. We conceptualise, design, and then create large cultural experiences that we then either license into museums and galleries around the world, or we tour around the world ourselves and self-promote. And as a company, we started off very much as an artefact-based exhibition company where we had artefacts, behind a piece of glass with a piece of interpretive information. Worked out that wasn't going to cut the mustard, and we moved into multimedia, and now we're very much into multi-sensory and creating very large multi-sensory digital immersive experiences.
So an example, if we talk about that in terms of, say, a Van Gogh exhibition, what does that look like to a punter that might come along and in normal times, a punter comes in and steps into the building? But
when we can welcome people in, the LUME in Melbourne, we've established the largest experience that we've done, which is over about 3,000 square metres. We've carved out 2 bays in the Melbourne Convention Exhibition Centre permanently to house the LUME, which is really the first digital immersive art gallery in the Southern Hemisphere. Certainly a big attraction for Australia moving forward and for Melbourne. But what it is exactly, as I said, it's a multi-sensory gallery. It's got 143 high-definition projectors inside through the ceiling, projecting in 360 degrees to a specially fitted out area that includes a mezzanine and lift and activation areas and cylinders and shapes and up to 11.5 metres in height. The Van Gogh Alive show that we have in there is a visual production that is also synced to a musical score, an evocative musical score, and then we have aroma pumping through the space, and we've actually set up inside the experience a full cafe and bar area so we can introduce taste, and then we have activation areas under the mezzanine for touch. So what we're doing is actually synchronizing all the human senses together, and so what that does is give an amplified outcome for the visitor, and that's often an emotional outcome. And so we're touching people emotionally in art and culture perhaps like they haven't been touched before.
Yeah, it's quite visually stunning, and if you go to one of the websites, Grande Experiences or the LUME, you'll just get a sense of how visual, how vibrant it is. But then you layer in those the more the tactile things of taste. And it is truly multi-sensory. I just wanted to put into some context. Your businesses you've exhibited now in about 190 cities around the world, 6 continents, 32 languages, and at a recent count, about 17 million visitors that pass through. So that's quite a significant business that you've built, and quite an innovative one. Where I'd really like to start the conversation proper, Bruce, is how you ended up in starting owning and continuing to run a business like this. Do you want to give us a little bit on that? The pathway in.
How long have you got, Michael? It's not an easy story.
Well, I've read it, but it's a fascinating one, and it involves things like changing direction, making a bold move to go and live in Italy. But I'll let you tell the story because it's...
Yeah, sure. No, look, it was a little bit opportunistic at the time. I was in a different sort of business. I had an opportunity to bring the first exhibition of Leonardo da Vinci's machine inventions from Italy to Melbourne, which we took on. Big success. Ran that here in Melbourne. So I went over to Italy to work with the people behind this, the Italian artisans, because I actually wanted to, from that, create, I suppose, the most comprehensive exhibition on Leonardo that had ever been done. There'd been lots of small ones that had focused on a number of. He didn't do a lot of paintings, but what he does, there's 2 or 3 in the Louvre, and there's a couple in the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, and then he's got a collection of drawings. But there's a whole other side to Leonardo that I wanted to explore. So basically, I suppose. I went over to Italy. I met with the head artisan, came back to Australia. We'd sort of had a couple of dinners and lunches. We'd agreed to work on everything. I came back here in Melbourne, and I was emailing, no response. I was calling, and after a couple of minutes, I was getting there. Yeah, ciao, Bruce, got to go. Thinking he was paying for the phone call, I think. So I was having dinner with a very good friend, Has Dalal, who's the head of the Australian Multicultural Foundation. He's also the chairman of SBS, and his wife, Rita, who's Italian. I said, come on, Rita, what gives? I want to do business in this guy. We've been over there and met, and she said, look, he's not ready yet, Bruce. And I said, well, how do I get him ready? She said, well, you can't rush these things. You're going to have to spend time. So in a nutshell, I left dinner that night, and I said to my wife in the car home, well, it looks like we're packing up and going to Italy because I need to spend time with this guy and win him over. So we had 3 young kids, and off we went. So I lived in Italy for basically 12 months, but it still took me 3 months and a lot of pastas and a lot of proseccos and like to convince him to get on board and to go. Even though I was funding everything, I didn't see what the risk was for him, but it was just their culture in getting comfortable to do business together. Right.
So you totally. So you must have seen an opportunity or been so excited to pursue this. To pack up everything, take your wife and 3 kids to live in Italy.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I ran this the first exhibition of machine inventions here in Melbourne, but they were really just small models on podiums. I did speak to the Melbourne museums and national galleries, etc., and got no interest. And I thought, well, that's strange. I thought there was a pretty good story to be told here for people. So we put it on down at the Docklands, got a great sponsorship with ING Real Estate. We had 120,000 visitors come through. So I knew we had, the bones there. It just wasn't put together as well as it could and should be. And I just thought there was an opportunity there. So spoke to my business partner at the time, and off we went to Italy. And from there, the rest is history, so they say.
Yeah. So the opportunity you saw was that, it was a very one-dimensional kind of experience, but with this incredible Leonardo, art and designs. But you just saw that it could be made more immersive or more.
Yeah. Look, when I looked into it at the time, I realised that there were very, very few private companies actually creating exhibitions for museums and galleries, which is why there was probably a little bit of a standoffish approach in that you're not from that world. Well, we don't want to talk to you. So
you're a disruptor.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But then the more I got into the story of Leonardo, the more I understood the fascination of arguably the world's greatest genius, but his story really hadn't been told. So I thought, well, that's a great opportunity. And the more I got into it, the more I understood, well, that's a universal opportunity. I'd done an awful lot of travelling as an individual, so creating a global company where I could create this and place it globally was a big attraction. It had a higher purpose of educating its audiences. But I suppose, I was a teacher initially and a PE teacher. And what I learned pretty quickly was, well, if I want to educate kids, I've got to engage them. And if I want to engage them, I've actually got to entertain them. And so I've taken a lot of that into the business approach. And that's really what we've done. We've just made it interesting for people through the storytelling. which has been a foundation of our success.
Yeah. So teaching informed you a lot about having to make it interesting, and but you were driven by a desire to educate and bring this wonderful work to a bigger audience. I think you had some time. I'm still, the opportunity thing is, fascinates me to do what you did, but you also had experience in after teaching in some other roles. I think did you start a couple of other businesses, get some corporate experience?
I suppose the biggest step I made from teaching was actually the defining step, if I go back through it, was at the age of 29, and at the time I was working with Merck Sharp & Dohme pharmaceutical company. So I'd made that transition from teaching into the pharmaceutical industry, which taught me a lot around the sales and marketing and business acumen. But I took off overseas for 12 months. I sort of finished up a long-term relationship, sold a house, quit the job, and off I went. And it was really while I was overseas that I started to look deep within myself about what I wanted out of life. And that's really led me to the conclusion that I couldn't work for the man, so to speak, going forward, that I had to actually create something that was my own business. And so I came back from that 12 months overseas pretty much solidified that I had to create business and find a higher purpose for what I was doing in life and give it a good crack. And what I know it sounds really, really cliche, but I actually wanted to live an extraordinary life rather than just an ordinary life that I felt I was going to live if I just kept working for a multinational company and not fulfill some of the visions that I had of what could be. Yeah,
look, and you did live that out by doing what you did, and but yeah, it's I think having that higher purpose is is that a big driver, enabler for you to
Absolutely.
keep doing? So how big is the bit, like when we talk about your business now in terms of employees and locations? I mean, it's how significant. You don't have to talk about financials, but the business itself is. I'm gathering it's a reasonable size organisation.
Yeah, look, we're probably the leaders in the world at what we do. There's only a few companies that do things like we do things. No one would have that global reach that we have. We've got about 40 staff here in Melbourne. We've got offices in London. We own a museum on Leonardo da Vinci in Rome, and I have staff and companies set up there and pay taxes in Italy, which is always interesting. We have presence in Santiago in Chile, so we're able to reach. And I've also got a couple of my staff when COVID hit. We sent them over to the US, and so we're able to manage things even though we're locked down here in Melbourne quite well. But then when we put on an experience and then are installing it, there's a cast of thousands involved, and then there's a different cast when it's operating, and then we pull it down and move it on to the next location. And
so it sounds to me like you're a small giant or something. I think there's a terminology, but that's an extraordinary what you've done and achieved to date. Is remarkable. And on today's episode of Small Business Banter Radio, we're chatting with Bruce Peterson from Grande Experiences and the LUME. Bruce, as a business owner, we'd like to see more people in small businesses, but also more people successful in their businesses. And it's I think there's a lot of people I've met over the years that want to no longer want to work for the man, or the woman. But it's one thing to say that and another to do it. So, how have you managed to continue to do what you need to do to build the business and keep focused on that higher purpose and do all the things that come with building a very innovative global business in challenging times?
Yeah, look, and there's no real silver bullet answer to this. For my circumstances, one of the main philosophies that I've had is to always look at the downside first. The upside will take care of itself, and if the upside's good, that's great. But if the downside's unacceptable, then you can't pursue it. So when you deeply look into a downside, you look deep within yourself about what your own fears are and what your own barriers are to, and what are the things that are holding you back. And sometimes they're nowhere near as onerous or as
scary
as what as what you may be thinking when you deeply analyse it. So for me, I always had a self-belief that, well, if this doesn't work, I can always go back to teaching. I can always go back to pharmaceuticals. I can always go back to another business, another job. So why not give it a crack? But then the idea of what it would offer me was so very, very compelling. But it's hard work, and you've got to be intelligent, you've got to be resilient, you've got to have a strong sense of determination, you've got to have a sound business acumen. It doesn't, all these things can be developed though. They're some of them are characteristics that are within all of us. Some are just hidden a little bit more than others, but other things can be learned. Business can be learned. I still remember my greatest fear in going into business was I didn't know how to pay tax and I didn't know how to do payroll. Well, here I am. It's still not something that I do. I employ people to do that. So what was the issue? But they're the things it's really interesting what can hold you back for that initial step forward.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you draw on, like on an ongoing basis? Do you tap into other business owners, or, I mean, it's you've got purpose. You've built something of significance, but I'd imagine there's day-to-day challenges. So do you talk to other owners? Do you have a great relationship with accountants or advisors? Or
yeah, look, I think if I look at one of my own strengths is that I very much seek out advice from everywhere. I don't pretend that I have the answers to everything and the like. And so, I'm very fortunate that I also worked out pretty early on that I needed a very good accountant and a very good lawyer to do what we do. And I've got very good relationships there. And I've got a very good network of other business owners and people that we can, bounce certain things off and share over lunch and the like. But I also study, I'm a big biography reader rather than fiction, and I like people's stories.
Yeah.
I'm not big on those. And I think one of the success of Grande has been in the arts cultural industry, that I don't come from the arts cultural industry. I'm actually able to approach it from a totally different perspective than what everyone else in the industry does. And that comes from just a broad range of knowledge from elsewhere and how to apply that into a particular industry area that I saw was ripe for change, that there was different ways things could be done. And I think this is a key part for anyone. You don't have to have an original idea. You look at the Richard Bransons of this world. I mean, Virgin Airlines is not an original idea. What he's done is just made the airline industry better by lifting the service and the way you go about things. And I think that's something that we often forget, that the opportunity for business owners and the like is making something better, not creating something new.
Yeah. Did you like the idea of being a little bit of an outsider?
I love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Where does that come from?
Oh, where does that come from? I don't know, a little bit of upbringing in Latrobe Valley, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I still find it quite fascinating. I grew up in Glengarry on a small farm outside of Traralgon and was the first to go to university and get a degree and moved into PE teaching. And here we are. I'm sort of leading and pioneering a whole new way of how art and culture is viewed around the world. And it can be seen a step too far from where I came from to where we are, where I am today. But there are logical steps along the way. And I don't think you start out with knowing what all those steps are. Sometimes you just got to get on the highway and play.
Yeah, and be brave. But I do like the way that you probably frame things in the sense of, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? What are the, what's the, where do I end up, and what's my alternatives if that doesn't quite work out? That seems to be an underpinning philosophy, which is a good one.
Yeah, I think so, Michael. And also, I think as Australians too, and I know it's a cliche, but we do have a go, or we can have a go. And unlike certain other cultures around the world where you really can be stifled by your surname or where you grew up or where you went to university or what your profession is, and it's hard to move from that, Australia is fairly merit-based. But it raises eyebrows all around the world. Why is an Australian, working with an Italian icon that's second only to God and Leonardo da Vinci? Why am I the one that's taking Vincent Van Gogh out around the world and not the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam? Why is an Australian doing this? Why? There's a lot of whys that keep coming for other people, but I don't see any barriers in what we do. The key for me in my industry is I only have to focus on the visitor. I don't have to worry about all the internal politics of curators and boards and donors and governments and everything like that, which enables me to cut through all the crap and get to the heart of what's important in my industry.
Yeah, you're using technology to, like, you must have an outstanding or close relationship with the owners of the intellectual property in right. So so Leonardo's works and
we take licenses,
right.
Of works, etc. And then I've got an extraordinary team, both from a creative and a production sense. So I've got some of the best, audio-visual production people in the world working for me, and I have some, incredibly talented creative, directors that are creating the experiences. And it's the combination of all those, things together that enable it. And I don't do any of those things. I struggle turning on the remote control for the TV that's at home, and I wouldn't know how to work my way around a design program, on the computer. But
you appreciate that incredible artwork or design, and you want to see more people experience it in a kind of multi-sensory way. And but in terms of the people that work for you, is that the key, differentiator or the key platform for you to have, people doing something?
People are absolutely your most valuable resource in a company and integral to you, and having good people. And as a leader of a company rather than as a manager of a company, like I have a CEO in place and CFO and other, executive teams there. But, key for me is getting the right people in the right positions that can then go and do what they need to do. And I think that's what a leader does. A leader is different to a manager. A leader really has the vision. It knows where it's going. It knows, and works out the strategy to get from A to B to C, and then it puts the right resources in place to enable that to happen, be they financial, be they physical, or be they human.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time. I'm really excited to hear this, this story about the business, and where are you going to take the business? What are your plans for the next 5 or 10 years? Do you, are you long range planning as difficult as it is at the moment?
No, well, look, we've got 11 experiences on around the world at the moment. So we're actually flying. It's just here in Australia we're struggling.
Right.
And not even in Australia. We just closed in Adelaide with Van Gogh Alive to a huge 150,000 people. And we did Sydney last year with 300,000. So it's just Melbourne that's battling. We just established the LUME here in Melbourne, and we also established the LUME Indianapolis in the Indianapolis Museum of Fine Art. And these are permanent, digital, immersive, multisensory galleries, bit of a mouthful. But our vision will be establishing these, around the globe. These are really new cultural attractions that hit into the digital age, but they're still shared experiences that people can then share again through their Instagrams and Facebooks and the like. They're not virtual. I'm still very much a believer that even in this society, there is enough online as it is, but people need to get out with other people and experience things. And we're going to be at the forefront of that, but we're still using digital technology because it's a great medium to achieve what we want to achieve in telling stories around great art, great artists, great cultural events, nature and science, etc. So we've got a pretty clear vision about where we're heading and what we're doing, and COVID's just a little bit of a blip, in getting there.
It sure is. Do you want to just call out those the two website names? As I said earlier, I'd encourage people just to get a sense of what this is. Have a look at these couple of websites. They're extraordinary things.
Yeah, sure. Look, first is grandeexperiences.com. There's a hyphen in there. And that's Grande with an E, so it's grand with an E. And then we have, thelume.com. So they're both .coms because we're global. All our information's pretty much on there with what we do.
Yeah, I'm really encouraging people to, we all want to get out and about, and that'll happen when it happens. But just to get I was blown away, by what you've done with this business, and really appreciate you coming on and spending some time, Bruce. It is a great story. From switching careers and building something like this that's global. Well done to you and the team. I wish you well with the next, whatever the next steps are, but look forward to staying in touch as well, Bruce. Thanks for your time.
Great. Thanks, Michael. And I hope something from this, is useful and worthwhile for someone out there.
I'm sure it will be. Thanks again, Bruce.
Cheers, mate. Thanks. Bye.
So that is all for today's episode of Small Business Banter. I continue to be inspired, bringing you small business experts and other small business owners and hearing their stories. If you want to listen to any past episode, jump onto your podcast platform of choice and search Small Business Banter. There you will find a diverse and fascinating collection of small business owners and experts openly discussing and sharing their experiences. For any of the links, resources, or information we've talked about on the show today, or to contact me, please head over to smallbusinessbanter.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And it would be great to have you tune in the same time next week for another episode of Small Business Banter.